Somewhere beneath the city of Tehran, or perhaps near the holy city of Qom, a man who rules a nation of nearly 90 million people hasn't made a single phone call in over 150 days. He hasn't opened a laptop. He hasn't stepped outside during daylight hours. And according to multiple Western intelligence assessments reported by the Times of London, he may be doing all of this with a disfigured face hidden from the satellites that killed his father just months earlier. This is the story of Mojtaba Khamenei, the man who became Iran's third supreme leader in the middle of a war, and who has effectively vanished ever since. To understand how Iran ended up led by a man almost nobody has seen, go back to the morning of February 28, 2026. The day Israeli and American air power carried out what analysts have since called a decapitation strike on the top of the Iranian regimes. President Trump confirmed the outcome himself, posting that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the Islamic Republic's second supreme leader and its ruler since 1989, was dead. Israeli officials briefed reporters with the same conclusion, and within hours, the Associated Press and Reuters were reporting the killing as confirmed, fact Trump's own words relayed by outlets including Seeking Alpha called Khamenei one of the most evil people in history. The strike didn't just kill the supreme leader. Reporting cross-checked against contemporaneous coverage indicates it killed 5 people total, including members of Khamenei's inner circle, and was carried out by the Israeli Air Force with American support. This is usually where the story gets simplified into a single headline, but the reality is messier, and understanding that mess is the key to what happened next. Khamenei's death didn't happen in isolation. It came after more than 8 months of on-again, off-again conflict that had already reshaped the region. In June 2025, Iran and Israel had fought what's now called the 12-day war, ending in a ceasefire mediated by the U.S. and Qatar after Iran launched missiles at the American Al Udeid air base in Qatar. In response to U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, that ceasefire held uneasily until it broke down entirely in February 2026 with the strike that killed the elder Khamenei. So when Iran lost its supreme leader in a single morning, the country wasn't just facing a succession crisis. It was facing a live war, a devastated senior leadership, and a constitutional process that had never been tested under these conditions. Iran's system calls for the Assembly of Experts, a clerical body, to choose a successor. Reporting, relayed by the financial outlet MEXC, citing the Chinese wire service, Jinshi News says the Assembly confirmed a successor in early March 2026, Mojtaba Khamenei, the second son of the man just killed. It's worth understanding how improvised the process was because it explains a lot about the outcome, Iran's constitution. Specifically, Article 111 has a built-in emergency mechanism. Within a day of the strike on March 1, 2026, Iran stood up a 3-person interim leadership council to temporarily hold the supreme leader's powers, including command of the armed forces. That council consisted of President Masoud Pezeshkian, Chief Justice Gholam Hossein Mohseniejeh, and senior cleric Ayatollah Alireza Arafi, who was himself considered a possible permanent successor. CNBC's reporting from March the 2nd lays out the formal process. The permanent successor has to come from Iran's Assembly of Experts, an 88-member body of clerics, nominally elected by the public every 8 years, though every candidate is first vetted by the Guardian Council, a constitutional watchdog with a long history of disqualifying candidates it considers insufficiently loyal. Analysis from the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, published in early March 2026, adds important context. In the run-up to this moment, an aging Ali Khamenei had already stacked the Assembly of Experts with hardliners during its 2024 election, using the Guardian Council to disqualify hundreds of more moderate or reformist candidates from even running. Carnegie's analysis suggested that with Khamenei no longer around, to enforce discipline, individual assembly members might act more independently than expected, even though the broad parameters of succession had arguably already been set in advance. Suzanne Maloney of the Brookings Institution described the appointment process as necessarily improvisational and dictated by the moment, warning that a smooth transition was nearly impossible under wartime conditions. The Assembly deliberated between March 3rd and March 8th, a vote requiring a simple majority of the 88 clerics, and announced its decision on March 9th. Before that vote, other names had circulated in Western reporting, including Hassan Khomeini, grandson of the Islamic Republic's founder, Ruhollah Khomeini, though Iran International had assessed him as unlikely given his effective exclusion from the regime's inner circle. In the end, the Assembly chose continuity through bloodline, Ali Khamenei's own son. It's also worth noting how thoroughly the February 28th strike targeted the apparatus around the Supreme Leader's office itself, not just the man holding the title. Iran had already closed the Strait of Hormuz after the February strikes, sending shockwaves through global energy markets. On April 7th, 8th, 2026, after more than 5 weeks of fighting the U.S., and Iran agreed to a ceasefire negotiated with Israel, folded in as well, though there was almost immediate disagreement over whether Lebanon was included. Just hours after the ceasefire was announced, the Israel Defense Forces carried out a blitz across Lebanon that killed hundreds of people, straining the fragile new truce before it had even settled. The Associated Press described the ceasefire as a 2-week arrangement with Iran agreeing to further negotiations with the U.S. In Islamabad, Pakistan, which had helped organize the truce, a photo distributed by the AP that day showed pro-government demonstrators in Tehran's Engelabe Islami Square, holding a poster of the new supreme leader, even though the man himself was nowhere to be seen in person. For a brief period, it looked like the region might be stabilizing. On June 14th, mediators announced a memorandum of understanding intended to formally end the conflict within 60 days of signing. That didn't hold either. Fighting resumed in July after Iran struck 3 commercial vessels that had bypassed a pre-approved shipping route through the Strait of Hormuz Al Jazeera's. Mid-July coverage adds important texture. It reported that Mojtaba Khamenei, again through a written statement, said he personally held a different view of the memorandum, but approved it because President Pezeshkian, acting as chairman of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, had accepted responsibility for the deal. There's an older report worth mentioning for context, since it shows this pattern of extreme secrecy predates Mojtaba's leadership entirely. The Israeli outlet WeNet reported back in February 2026, before the elder Khamenei's death, that Iran International had obtained an account from an IRGC member describing how senior officials who needed to meet with the elder Ayatollah were taken to him blindfolded to prevent them from ever learning his exact location. According to that report, even Ali Larijani, secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, was blindfolded before meetings with the supreme leader ahead of a trip to Oman for talks with the U.S.-Iran internationals. A report couldn't be independently verified at the time, and WeNet noted that clearly, but it establishes that this culture of extreme operational secrecy around the position isn't new. It predates the war and simply intensified dramatically under Mojtaba, given that his predecessor was successfully targeted and killed. This is where the freshest reporting matters, because the story is still moving to the parallel conflicts in Lebanon and Gaza, framing all of it as a single regional confrontation. Even though Washington and Israel have specifically denied the Iran ceasefire was ever meant to cover Lebanon. This is the part of the story that separates careful reporting from wild speculation, and it's worth being precise about it. There is no confirmed, independently verified proof from a named government source, a wire service with direct access, or any other checkable authority that Mojtaba is dead. The claim that he might already be deceased with the Revolutionary Guard, staging the appearance of his survival to keep the war effort legitimate in the eyes of the Iranian public, comes from a single former Mossad officer, unnamed in the original reporting chain, now affiliated with a think tank called the Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Policy. That's a serious allegation from someone with a relevant background, but it's one person's assessment filtered through at least 2 layers of secondary reporting, not a confirmed fact. Treat it as a live theory, serious people are taking seriously, not as something that has happened. What is confirmed by multiple named independent sources, including NBC News, CNN, Al Jazeera, and the Times of London, through its Israeli media partners, is this: Ali Khamenei, supreme leader for 37 years, was killed in an Israeli-American strike on February 28, 2026. His son, Mojtaba, was named successor within roughly a week and a half. Mojtaba has never appeared in public as supreme leader, not once, not even at his own father's funeral. His communications with the outside world have come exclusively through written statements read by others. And Western intelligence agencies, per reporting tracing back to the Times of London, believe he's in hiding somewhere beneath Tehran or in a bunker near Qom, having gone more than 150 days without using a phone or computer of any kind, specifically to avoid the kind of tracking that led directly to his father's death. It helps to put this in a longer historical frame. Ali Khamenei ruled Iran as supreme leader for 37 years since 1989, and in all that time, even amid earlier wars, sanctions, and domestic unrest, remained a known, visible, if reclusive figure giving regular addresses, meeting foreign dignitaries, appearing at major state occasions. What's happening with his son isn't simply an intensified version of that same reclusiveness. It's categorically different. A head of state who apparently hasn't been physically confirmed by any independent observer, journalist, foreign official, or verified photo or video since before he even took office,